I just have a question for all of you. Speaking of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I just want to give you sheriffs a little bit of the accuracy of their information, okay? They don't do their research, and I'm here to prove it. Do all of you feel threatened by me? All right, now just so you know, the Southern Poverty Law Center has in their documentation on their website, if you go to the state of Utah and you look up Liberty News Radio, it's a little company that I own. It's a company called Sam Bushman Incorporated. It's just me. And it's called Liberty News Radio. It's a DBA. They say we're one of the biggest hate groups in the state of Utah. So as you hear me speak today, you'll just hear the hate seethe from who I am. No, you'll get to know who we really are and make a judgment for yourselves of what we really stand for. And I'm honored for the opportunity to stand before you and share my love of liberty with you and to thank you for your service. Thank you for your diligence. Thank you for your willingness to learn, to understand who you are and what role you play in history. Isn't it about time? Now, normally I give speeches and have slide presentations and everything. I give a speech that's available widely on the internet called "He Who Owns the Media Makes the Rules." So if you want to look that up, I've heard from this pulpit earlier this morning that, you know what, the media is not your friend, and truly the mainstream press is not your friend. But you can take a page out of the Ron Paul playbook, quote one of their own when you make a statement, and then all they do is barbecue themselves. But anyway, if you want to see that speech, it is available on the internet. He Who Owns the Media Makes the Rules is where you can hear about it. And it lets us really understand who's who in the media and what we need to do to make sure that the truth is known. Now, I want to start out and say I don't have a slideshow this time on purpose. Any of you ever heard the country song, "Paint Me a Birmingham"? You ever heard of that? All right, paint me a Birmingham. So the guy's up there painting, and the country singer walks up and he says, "Could you paint me a Birmingham?" And the guy says, "Sir, for $20, I can paint you anything." He says, "Fine, put her there in the front porch swing in a cotton dress. Make it early spring." The song goes on and he says, "Sir, where do you want to be in this painting?" So I want you to close your eyes and throw back to the golden age of radio for a second and listen to what I have to say. And see if we can't paint ourselves a Birmingham of America. Let's talk about a couple of examples from history that might spark your love of liberty. And then let's see if we can write the fourth chapter by ourselves, shall we? Go back to the 1770s. The ragtag band against the British Crown. The fight is on, the stakes are high, and the Americans are in trouble. They're in real trouble. They're a ragtag band of half-starved men, thin as a rail, but strong as nails. And you know what? They have their backs against the river. And the British are partying and looking for women and getting drunk and having a fantastic time, and the half-starved men are eating bug-infested gruel and hardtack for dinner. And what happens is the Americans have their backs against the river, and the British say, "Let's party tonight and annihilate them in the morning." And George Washington gets on his knees and he prays and he says, "Father, what do I do?" And it comes to him and he says, "You know what? Centuries, get me John Glover. John Glover of the Marblehead Regiment. Do you know who they are? Do you know who he is? Do you know their role in history? They were tough. They had dealt with the weather and the seas their whole lives. They were fishermen, and they put their lives in the hands of nature over and over and over again, prayed to God for success and did their best and let the Almighty take care of the rest." Well, they did so night after night after night. It was cold, bone-chilling. Ice chunks in the river so big they slam you, your boat sinks. It's freezing cold. They're hungry. They're starved. But you know what? They're out there on that night to protect life, liberty, and property. They're out there on that night to protect their wives and their children. They've got a cause that is just. So the Marblehead Regiment, in the middle of the night, while the British and the Hessians were partying, crossed the river, gained freedom to fight another day. They did this time after time after time, saving the Americans from complete annihilation. They're the Marblehead Regiment. They'll go down in history. They were not only known for their retreats, saving America over and over and over and over, but they had a couple of offenses. We're in the middle of the night. Again, the British were partying. It's party time for those boys, but not for us. And they went on the offensive, dodging those huge blocks of ice that would sink a boat in a second. Freezing cold, frostbite limbs, but dedicated in their hearts and in their minds to a cause. The cause is freedom. And they went on the offensive and they won some key battles for America. If you don't believe me, go study John Glover and the Marblehead Regiment. That's just one example. Isn't it about time, George Washington said, that we won a few, that we put the British in trouble? All right, we're losing in the north. It's trouble. We're getting spanked all across the country, if you will. All across the colonies, I should say. So they say, let's take the battle down south. And they did. Guess who was enlisted in that fight? He was a cripple. His name was Francis Marion. He was known as the Swamp Fox, ladies and gentlemen. And the Swamp Fox led a ragtag band of freedom fighters in the south, across the swamps and through the valleys. And they had a strange type of warfare, a guerrilla warfare that, you know what? The British didn't know what to do with. They simply didn't know how to cope with a ragtag band led by a cripple named Francis Marion. He was so good at what he did, they nicknamed him the Swamp Fox. And the Swamp Fox gave the British a run for their money, and the British started to think, wait a minute, we might not be able to win this thing so easily. I fast forward. The time is World War II. America's live and well and in trouble again, you might say. The Japanese and the Germans broke our communications over and over and over. What are we going to do? Japanese fought on the American side. Tragic story. We put many of them in internment camps. That's a chapter we don't want to relive. But I digress. What was our answer to the communications problem? You ever heard of the Navajo code talkers? Oh yeah, they had a language that they used to make fun of because it wasn't written and say it was a language for savages. Ah, but good, honest Americans knew better. We used their language to save America once again in the Navajo code talker language. The Navajo language could not be broken. Again, America comes to the rescue. From the individuals like the Swamp Fox, a cripple, to the seagoing men who were fishermen, who stood for liberty and saved America, went on the offensive and gave George Washington a chance, to the code talkers, to you, my fellow sheriffs. Isn't it about time for a sheriff, the top official in his jurisdiction, to set the record straight of the proper separation of powers? To say, yeah, federal government, you do have appropriate power. You have very distinguished, distinct, enumerated powers defined by the supreme law of the land. And absolutely, we back you in your enumerated responsibilities without question. However, the founding fathers were wise and inspired by the Almighty, and there was checks and balances in that system. And I submit to you that you sheriffs are the check and balance we're looking for. You're the hope of the future. You will be backed by Americans. Members of the media such as myself on Liberty Roundtable and other places will do the talking. We will tell the tale of liberty, and we will enlist our fellow Americans to peacefully stand behind you as you use the law of the land and the checks and balances designed by an all-wise Father in heaven and by good, honest men who fought for liberty in their day to help us fight for liberty in our day. It is my prayer that you will get on your knees and find your position, that you will have a gut check and a heart check and a mind check and say, you know what? This isn't radical. Maybe strange. It was always strange, even for the Americans, even for the ragtag band in the 1700s. It's been strange forever to fight for liberty. We're a nation, a one of a kind. We're a nation with an experiment, said the founding fathers, that had never been tried before. We're not a nation under government, we're a nation under God. With checks and balances, we will have the most unique form of government ever devised by man, inspired by God on the earth, promoting the most amount of liberty to the most amount of people ever. And the history shows the experiment successful. Sheriffs, will you paint me a Birmingham? Americans, will you help me paint a Birmingham? We'll be at home with our families, worshiping our God as our Father in heaven intended. We'll be protecting liberties as our forefathers gave their lives and blood for. And just like Taco Bell, they say think outside the bun. We can do it by thinking outside the gun. Thank you.